Hi all, meet the sea donkeys on this gorgeous trip up Newtown Creek to meet the seals, and we go through a firing range, like you do. So today we head out from Tanner's and we're going across to Newtown Creek, which is about 3 miles to go across, 130 degrees in a straight line. We're going against the tide today, so that's about 2 knots against you, giving you the vector here, course to steer 100 degrees. The sea donkeys were on their way down to the water as we turned up. And by the time we'd launched, they were all here having their buffet of seaweed on the beach, which was just quite hilarious seeing them there chomping through the seaweed. Maybe I need to get out more, but it did it for me. Not a common sight. So back on with the job. That's Duncan there waiting for me to stop faffing around with the donkeys. So as you saw, messing with the charts there off to the right is the destination, just across the channel, 3 miles away at this point. Yeah, trust me, I don't sit there with charts and a caliper to go across the channel, but this is just a rough idea of how to actually beat the tide. So there it is, 130 degrees to the destination, tide calculated, and that's what we're pointing at, is 100 odd degrees off there. So don't make it too scientific, that's what I do, and I tend to do it in my head while looking at the Navionics app, in case you care. So still early in the season, not much traffic, but we've got a bit of a boat coming there just at a nice angle, and I'm thinking that might give me some waves, so we turn, we try and catch them, but long story short, they were a little underwhelming, so we get back on course. There you go, there's a bit of a wake, but you couldn't really surf that, it's not steep enough to do much. So we're getting back on course, and now most of the way across, I won't dwell on it, you've seen this crossing before. And we're now approaching the entrance into Newtown Creek, which is a narrow wee gap. You do get a bit of tide going through there, and that's the gap. And inside you've got a lot of the locals there. There's a few dinghies out. Occasionally you see kayakers. Isolated danger, but that is just this little mud bank. The tide's well in, too deep for us to care about that. Let the yachties with a keel worry about it. And we are going for the longest leg inside Newtown Creek, which is Kayaking Lake. So the catamaran did give me a little naughty idea, had a little peep under there, but headroom was short. I was tempted to be juvenile, which I may have done in the past, but I overcame that and I was mature. So moving on, one of the locals out enjoying this spring day in the UK. So a little pause here looking for the channel markers. There are some markers, they're just posts, and bear in mind everything that's green on the charts is actually flooded, so finding that little post is small target. And there it is just on the right, and again over Duncan's head there now. So moving down this next stretch, we see what we thought was a couple of kayaks beached there. As you come closer, it's a couple of massive seals. I guess basking in the sun. Pretty cool to see. And there's a third one there further on. They didn't look like grey seals, they're almost brownish, so no idea what flavour they are. Feel free to comment. More locals out enjoying the sun. So there's that third seal with the 360 camera. And then again on the 4K camera. And just over there you can see a white sign on the bank, which as we came in closer, this is that white sign. Not very readable, bit faded, but ultimately it's a firing range and no landing, so working on the assumption we're okay as long as we're not landing or mooring, we kept going. Some gratuitous Valkyrie shots, and we're aiming for this northern finger, which will take us most of the way to Porchfield, almost to the Porchman's Rest if you know the area. And this is part of the firing range, so we're keeping our heads down here. We didn't have helmets. There was no one around and no action going on, so we didn't feel in any danger. But of course, you see a little gap, you've got to go for it. And it's a bit of a tight squeeze actually, but didn't hit it, so that's fortunate. So as noticed, this is incredibly calm, really peaceful, and once you're out of that wind, it's actually really warm as well for so early in the spring. A couple of random geese, some jumping fish, or tiddlers, I guess that will keep the seals happy, something to chase for dinner, and a kingfisher. Real National Geographic shot there. Random shallow bit, lift your rudder, dredge the weed up, and we just keep pushing on, follow our nose, and we're just seeing how far we can actually get. I've never done this route before, Duncan hasn't either, so it's literally a voyage of discovery. So still quite navigable. We start to see a few trees falling down, but they're not blocking the way yet. But it is incredibly peaceful up here. See the blossoms out behind me there. Get the rudder up. It's more manoeuvrable without the rudder on the Valkyrie. Under, round, through a few more trees and bits and pieces. Get a branch up your nose. Yep, needed that. And with that, we have reached the end of the road, because there's a tree right across it. If I thought there was a load more, we could have carried the boats around, but you could see on the chart we'd pretty much finished it. We were right up here, almost by the Porchfield Church. Duncan turning up. With that, we sat, we pondered the universe, fixed some of the world's problems, gossiping, and we headed back. However, bearing in mind from the chart you'll see there are two fingers, and so we opted to try the second one as well. Back through the bridge. Not such a good shot, I did hit it. Oops. Back through the firing range, and at this point, if we had turned right, we would be going right back to the entrance, ready to cross over, but there is still one finger left to explore, so we're actually going south at this point. Purely because you can. Here, in a little brain dead moment, we were heading towards one of the dead ends. So when you're down low, it's actually really difficult to see what's the main channel and what is a little dead end on the side. So a quick detour to get back into the proper river, out of a muddy dead end. Oops. More trees, and just visible beyond that firing range sign is the road bridge. And as you approach the tree, of course, you go over a branch and you get yourself grounded. Making that the end of the line. Another oops moment. So Duncan was bright enough to not do that and stayed back watching and laughing at me. And with that, we make our way back north to the main channel, giving the chance for a not very common shot. Click. Firing range. So now back to the channel. A few birds, I believe they're terns, but again I'm no bird spotter, so who knows. The seals are still busy. It's been a tough day for them. See the brownie colour, so yeah, still waiting for the comments on what they are. Back past that cardinal marker or glorified stick. And a wee chat with a fella wanted to know if the pub's open and how to get to it. And for the record, last time I looked last year, the pub had closed down. So again, I'm open to comments if you know otherwise, but that's my most recent info, the pub is closed. So that is now the main entrance where we came in and where we will go out, but at this point we're going to pull up on the banks. We've been paddling at this point for a couple of hours. Give your legs a stretch. Up on the beach, scoff some lunch, and we're back on the go, this time to head straight back. So now a bit later in the day, the wind's picked up a little bit, but not enough to really care. There's a little bit more traffic, but again not enough to really care. And by now the tide is starting to slow down a wee bit. It's past its peak while we were inside the river. So a bit more traffic, a little bit more sploosh. And course to steer wise did pretty much the same exercise, so we're aiming slightly to the right of where we actually want to head, and the tide will bring us along to the left. So we're heading back into Tanner's here. Duncan's straight up the beach, I'm reversing up the beach, and there's a wee glance at the timings, which you'll see properly later if that was too fast. No sea donkeys this time, they've gone off to sleep off their food. The full trip 21.5 k's and nearly 4 hours. The track showing, exploring both of those fingers at the far end of Newtown Creek. So you'll notice we've had a quiet start to the year. That's partly work, it's partly weather, it's also because one of us has been crazy and signed up for the London Marathon, which they're running this weekend, so maybe we'll get you a photo of that. So in the meantime, there's been a lot of cycling, just generally staying in shape for the new season, which starts in a couple of weeks properly with a trip to Scotland, to Mull. So do look out for that, I'm sure there'll be plenty to talk about, and I'll look out for you on the water.